Good morning, afternoon, or evening, ladies and gentlemen, all in crypto here, and welcome back, guys, for another daily cryptocurrency market update. I don't even know where to begin with this one, guys. We can maybe start by looking at the price action. Yesterday was an insane day from a price action point of view, and I salute anybody that tried to trade that, and hopefully not too many short-term day traders got wrecked or scalpers got wrecked on that because it was a very volatile day yesterday. Bitcoin did very well. It touched that 30K and then rejected very hard all the way down to, I think, 27. It may have even put a toe into 26. So we will cover that. You guys know, ultimately, I think a new trend is in place. I think we're ultimately now and have already started a new bull market. We made this call on January. And ultimately, we're seeing it through until point of invalidation. We've got an inverse head and shoulders that takes us up to 35K and then, of course, 40, depending on whether you're looking at a log or a non-log. But there's a lot going on outside of crypto and outside of the charts that I want to cover in this video. And this is what I mean by I don't even know where to start. We'll look at this one a little bit later because some banks are actually doing very well. Now, I believe that crypto, gold, and, of course, the dollar have all been largely affected by First Republic. First Republic's free-falling, kind of like what Silicon Valley Bank did. The real question with all that is, are the Fed now going to add to their balance sheet again? Which I believe is a form of QE. Anytime the Fed put money into the economy, I think that's quantitative easing, even if it is through bonds. And I think markets are enjoying that. I think it's put some heat into their sales. But there's a number of things I really want to go into. The first thing that I just want to bring up, and we'll look at this just now and get it out of the way of, is the Bank of England's new logo. And they've removed coins and physical cash from it. Isn't this interesting? We know that the Bank of England are currently piloting a digital currency. And we know that they're actually even partnered with the likes of Ripple. I find this all very interesting, and certainly how they've done this. Details are important. One of the main things happening today, and we'll look at price action after we've gone through all of this, guys, is the US House passes bill to increase debt ceiling by 1.5 trillion. So anybody that's not familiar with the debt ceiling is the amount of debt that the US can have. They ultimately owe and have to pay yields on this. Why we've seen such a creeping up and an acceleration towards the debt ceiling is because, of course, the Fed have upped interest rates. So the Treasury have their own debts. They're now harder to service, and they've had no other choice other than to default on debts than to up that ceiling. You can see just how much of a sharp jump we had with March 2020. And actually, this is a way to look at markets. I believe markets are largely a liquidity game. I think if you follow that liquidity and on the right side of it, i.e. it's going up, markets do the same thing. And we've looked at this in great detail. And the interesting thing here is, and we had Stanley Druckenmiller come out and say he's short the dollar with conviction. Now, he'd have been short the dollar for a while, by the way, guys. It's not a recent thing. These guys don't come out when they're going short. They come out after the fact and hopefully use it to get them to their take profits. But it's very interesting what's going on right now, because if you understand the fiat systems, the dollar system, it's a debt-based system. And you're increasing the amount of debt that you have, which is almost like increasing the money supply, because you devalue the underlying debt that backs the currency broadly. And this is a never-ending game. We've said the debt ceiling is not a ceiling, it's a rooftop bar with narcotics and all you can drink. It's just a joke. And it's at this point, every single one of you watching this video should understand that the government is not your friend. The banks are not your friend. And they are the cause of pain beyond belief that they've caused to their citizens. And this is something I always drop pretty much in every single video because I feel so strongly about it. Now, this is really interesting. Just a quick breakdown of this. The US House passes a debt ceiling bill. Tactical victory for Kevin McCarthy. It amazes me how this is always a political thing. The debt ceiling. Do you know, they make it like a victory politically for upping this. You have no choice. Your dollar system is done. House Republicans narrowly passed sweeping legislation on Wednesday that would raise the government's legal debt ceiling by 1.5 trillion in exchange for steep spending restrictions. Does nobody else find that contradictory? You're going to restrict spending, but you're going to up the debt ceiling. Guys, life as we know it and as it has been told to us and taught to us from early ages is BS. It's been fabricated. and sponsored to have been taught that way. It's insane. And you can just see this is just a little thing, but this is how contradictory is that. You're going to stop spending, but you're going to up the debt limit. Okay. A tactical victory for the House Speaker Kevin McCarthy as he challenged Joe Biden to negotiate. And he, by the way, Joe Biden wasn't a part of any debate. I can guarantee that. Give me an easier debate than Joe Biden. To negotiate and prevent a catastrophic federal default this summer. So this, of course, is the thing. You know, our markets may be getting a bit of a bid on the back end of this. Well, crypto's doing well. Gold did okay yesterday, and the dollar went down. The S&P, for example, with its earnings, is not having the best time in the world. And we have spoke about the S&P and how it's at this kind of, you know, we did look at this as resistance, and we said it's very interesting that the S&P, Bitcoin, and the dollar are all at these really interesting kind of pivotal points. And the S&P has sold off. I can see the S&P going on higher and actually putting in new all-time highs, because ultimately, why wouldn't it? We're in a yield-based game, and cash is trash. It's a complete Ponzi. It's the biggest Ponzi in the world. It's why the stock market is overvalued. I've always scratched my head and gone, I don't know why the stock market is so overvalued. I understand why, because why would you hold cash? You know, certainly in it's a different environment now, potentially, and maybe there's a bit of adjusting that's gone on and is going to continue to go on in terms of valuations. But in a zero interest rate, if you're getting zero or even negative rates for your money, why wouldn't you put it into the stock market that pays you dividends? This is why it's just gone up in the manner that it has. And have we seen the reckoning or the day of reckoning, which I think is still yet to come for the stock market? It's been largely propped up. You know, you think the stock market is a scam and overvalued. Look at the dollar. It's literally made up. I always get this, how can you say that the dollar isn't made up? There is something back in it. It's the government and the US government and so on and so forth. I think that's a very good argument. However, it is made up. You know, the dollar is an ideology, guys. And this is why Bitcoin is so powerful with what it's brought to the table. I found this very interesting talking about the dollar. Yuan overtakes a dollar to become most used currency in China's cross-border payments. This is for the first time ever, by the way, guys. We are seeing a massive shift from the dollar as I think people are waking up to it. And I think at this point, they have the power to wake up to it. You know, I think people look at America as quite a weak nation now. And I find that very interesting, you know, and because you know, ultimately it's not, but it's being deemed that, and you're seeing years ago this wouldn't have been allowed to happen, and they've gone to, America has started wars over exactly things like this, people moving away from the dollar, and trying to prevent that from happening. It's all coming, you know, very, very fast. You know, we saw record central banks buying gold in 2022. We've never seen 7 trillion added to the money supply. I mean, just looking at money supply, let's just bring up M1. I'll just move that light out of the way. Let's take a look at, what am I doing here? This is why people are moving away. Look at that. And of course, you know why markets have corrected. I don't think they can correct this for too long, if I'm being honest. I think this only goes one way. Just like the debt ceiling, you know, this Ponzi scheme ends on hyperinflation. And ultimately, you know, I think there is a bit of a challenge in regards to the fact they are going to have to bring some sort of an event on to get people back into dollars. And actually, what they could do is adopt crypto and then have all the emerging nations and nations that don't have a trustable, sustainable currency, not that the dollar is that, use the dollar. And that would actually further it in terms of adoption and push it and give people that alternative. But we've seen Gensler really drag his feet on that. And of course, there is congressional hearing going on. So there's a lot of banks out there. I think Barclays was another one that's actually doing quite well. Of course, I think this is on the back of interest rates. It's very interesting. Deutsche Bank logs 11th straight quarterly profits, revealing job cuts. So it's a mixed bag of things. Ultimately, you know, looking at the 2-year yields, looking at all this stuff, which we've done in great detail, you know, we have higher targets for Bitcoin. It's very interesting. We've said, actually, you should expect 30K to be resistance. And this is, I wouldn't mind seeing, you know, something like this. I think 30K should be respected. It's always supposed to have been respected. We said it was going to act as resistance before it was resistance. I do have a video coming out with the Market Sniper that I'm going to be releasing on Friday, I believe. So you guys don't have too long to wait. It's already out on Patreon. But he did speak about this head and shoulders, which he did call, and how it's very interesting talking about. Whoa, what's going on here? Talking about the markets. You know, are we doing this? And do we have structure for this? And this is a larger pattern than this one. And ultimately, you know, to expect upside until that point is not reckoned. So let's go into the price. Yesterday was just crazy, guys. Oh, man. I'm always leaving this draw tool on. Yesterday was craziness for the markets. It started off really good. I think it's going to continue to be really good. And then look at this. I mean, just look at this. Ugh. Sideways markets are not for me as a trader. And I've not really been doing a lot of trading over this week. I think closed most positions last week. Just simply because these markets aren't for me. I know what markets I like. I know what markets I don't like. And really, I look for breakouts, continuation in trends, and structure that suggests that. Sideways, it's not markets I'm very good at reading. You know, I don't do ICT principles, but I'm sure many of you do. But yesterday was wild. I mean, look at this for Bitcoin. I'm sure altcoins were similar. Oh, very interesting. It's almost like all the altcoins came back and grabbed the. Oh man, some more good draws from All In here. Wow. It's almost like it came back and grabbed all the stops here. What are we doing? You know, but ultimately, I think that you've tested this. You had a double bottom. You've come back and tested it once more. And you're showing a bit of strength here. You know, I don't think it's long before Bitcoin takes 30K. I don't think it's long before Bitcoin takes 35K. And ultimately, so I see a 40K and higher Bitcoin coming this year. And I think if you look at that and check that from a kind of macro perspective, which I think the 2-year yield is a very good truth indicator. And we've done lots of analysis on what happens when the 2-year tops for, let's say, the S&P, for example. You know, you can see actually the 2-year topped here, and the markets did take a little bit more of a roll, but ultimately, once the 2-year had actually topped, you know, markets actually went in and put in new all-time highs. And I think there's a similar situation coming for the markets once more. You know, you can see here, it's a very similar setup with the 2 years crashing. As the 2 years climb, because interest rates, you know, the markets typically adjust, and then when the 2 years done, you know, they kind of go on a rally. And this is what I think is coming broadly. And I think crypto's got its own thing going on, being an anti-fiat and being against which is why I think we've seen it do quite well on the back end of Silicon Valley Bank. And now, of course, First Republic and you know, the debt ceiling and all this stuff. It's got its own reasons for moving, and I think it's going to do exceptionally well over the next year. I think there's going to be trials and tribulations. I think ultimately you should expect pullbacks along the way. Things don't just go up in straight lines. But I think long and strong is you know, a stance that we took from the start of the year, and we're going to continue to back that until we get invalidated and see reason to not. So that's all I've got for you in this video, guys. If you've enjoyed the content, like us, always appreciate it. So as a comment, let me know your thoughts and concerns in the comment section. If you can do me a favor, leave me a like and a comment. It's greatly appreciated. And I really look forward to seeing you all in the next YouTube video. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. See you in the next one.